Life often has a way of throwing us into the deep end, and when it happens, we're left to figure out whether we'll sink or swim. Not too long ago, I found myself standing at the edge of what felt like a cliff, looking down at the uncertainty below. It wasn't the first time I'd been in a place like this, and I'm sure it won't be the last. There are moments in life when everything feels chaotic, like you're lost in a storm of decisions and emotions. I'm sure you've experienced this, too, where each decision feels overwhelming, each path looks like it leads to a dead end, and you wonder how you got to this point. I was there, caught in a whirlwind of choices, both personal and professional. The weight of every decision felt heavy, each step forward uncertain. Yet in those moments of complete confusion, something powerful became clear to me. Context is everything. You see, when you're in the midst of uncertainty, it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture. It's like being in the middle of a dense forest. You can't see the trees for the woods. But by stepping back and examining the situation from a different perspective, patterns begin to emerge. This is when context, the backdrop of any challenge, becomes the key to understanding what's really going on. Without context, things are just noise, confusion, and chaos. But with it, you can begin to untangle the threads and see where they lead. I remember a time when I was grappling with a career decision. I had the opportunity to switch industries, but the uncertainty of such a move was paralyzing. I didn't know if I would be successful or if I was making a huge mistake. But after taking a step back and reflecting on the broader context, my personal aspirations, my professional goals, and my values, the decision became clearer. Understanding the context behind my emotions and fears helped me break down the complexity of the situation into manageable pieces. I realized that I wasn't just making a career move. I was aligning my choices with my larger life vision. The context shifted my mindset from fear to opportunity. The truth is, when you zoom out and gain a broader understanding of the situation, you find clarity. You can't always control the chaos, but you can control how you interpret it. Context allows you to decode the signals in the noise and make informed, purposeful decisions. It turns confusion into clarity and uncertainty into a roadmap. So the next time you're in the middle of chaos, take a step back. Look for the context, the underlying patterns, values, and opportunities. You might just find the clarity you need to move forward. Key challenges and opportunities. When I reflect on the biggest challenges of my life, one thing stands out. They were never as bad as I first imagined. Sure, in the moment, each challenge seemed insurmountable. I remember feeling completely overwhelmed when I encountered setbacks in my career. It was as if the ground beneath me had shifted and I was left stumbling, trying to find my footing. The pressure of making the right decision, of not wasting time, felt suffocating. Yet, in hindsight, each of those challenges revealed something profound. The challenges weren't the problem, they were the solution. It was during one particularly difficult career setback that I had my turning point. I had been passed over for a promotion that I thought was practically mine. I remember feeling like a failure. I had worked hard, put in the hours, and yet someone else had been chosen. At first, it seemed like a devastating blow, a sign that I wasn't good enough, that I had hit a dead end. But then something shifted in me. Instead of focusing on the disappointment, I began to look at the situation differently. I asked myself, what if this setback isn't a failure, but an opportunity? I soon realized that this failure was actually the nudge I needed to rethink my entire career strategy. It pushed me to explore new avenues, learn new skills, and ultimately move into a role that was more aligned with my passions. What I had initially perceived as a barrier turned out to be a stepping stone. That career setback wasn't a sign of defeat, it was the catalyst for my growth. This is the way challenges work. They don't exist to break us down, they exist to help us grow. Each challenge, no matter how daunting, holds the potential for growth. The key is recognizing it. It's easy to get caught up in the surface-level frustrations, the frustration of missed opportunities, the uncertainty of new paths, the discomfort of change. But if you're willing to shift your perspective, you begin to see challenges as the signals they truly are. For example, let's talk about the time I was struggling with a project that was going nowhere. We had deadlines, expectations, and a team that was losing faith. It was tempting to throw in the towel, to tell myself that I wasn't cut out for this. But instead of giving up, I decided to shift my perspective. I realized that the challenge wasn't the project itself, it was the way I was approaching it. I began to see the situation not as a problem, but as a puzzle. The key challenge was figuring out the pieces and how to make them fit together. In that moment, I understood that every challenge was an opportunity waiting to be uncovered. It's not always obvious, and sometimes you have to dig a little deeper to find it. But opportunities often hide behind obstacles, and with the right mindset, you can uncover them. This shift in perspective is what changed everything for me. Instead of being afraid of challenges, I started to embrace them. I welcomed the discomfort, knowing that behind it was the growth I sought. So the next time you face a challenge, don't see it as a roadblock. See it as a signal, a message telling you that there's something to learn, something to discover, something to change. The road to success isn't straight, and the path is often messy. But it's in these moments of uncertainty and discomfort where the greatest opportunities lie. Embrace the challenges, learn from them, and use them to propel yourself forward. It's all part of the journey, methodology, and approach. It's easy to feel lost when you're facing a difficult challenge, unsure of where to begin or how to make progress. I've been there too, caught in the whirlwind of indecision and uncertainty. The frustration of trying to solve a problem but getting nowhere was all too familiar. I remember a time when I was trying to navigate a particularly complex situation in my career, and no matter how much I thought about it, the answers just didn't seem clear. At that moment, I realized I needed a framework, a structure to help guide me through the chaos. And that's when I learned a critical lesson. The key to solving any problem isn't brute force, it's methodical thinking. Without a clear methodology, we risk spinning our wheels and wasting time, but with the right approach, even the most complex challenges can become manageable. It's not just about working harder, it's about working smarter. Methodology is your roadmap in the fog, your compass when everything feels like it's up in the air. I recall a time when I was stuck in a rut, unsure of how to proceed with a project at work. I was overwhelmed by the complexity and scope of the task, and my instinct was to dive in headfirst and try to solve everything at once. But that approach only left me more disoriented. I realized I needed to break the problem down into smaller, more manageable pieces. The first step was understanding the root cause of the problem, what was at the heart of the issue. Once I identified that, I could start addressing it step by step. The second key was to take an iterative approach, test, refine, and then test again. I learned that progress wasn't about perfection, but about continual improvement. This methodical approach has been invaluable in my life, both personally and professionally. In fact, it's a tool I still use today. The key isn't to expect immediate results, but to focus on incremental progress. And that's how real change happens, by consistently refining our approach, learning from mistakes, and adjusting as we go. It's about building momentum, no matter how small the steps might seem at the time. In a world that often celebrates instant success and quick fixes, this mindset of slow and steady progress may seem counterintuitive. But it's precisely this patient, methodical approach that has allowed me to navigate some of the toughest challenges of my career and life. When you adopt a structured methodology, you give yourself the freedom to experiment and fail without the fear of making irreversible mistakes. The key is to stay adaptable and open to change, as the best solutions often come from unexpected places. So the next time you find yourself stuck, remember this: progress doesn't require perfection, just consistent, deliberate steps forward. Find your methodology, stick with it, and trust that with each small effort, you're moving closer to your goal. Case studies and examples. Sometimes, a simple story can illuminate a lesson in a way that theoretical concepts never could. When we hear about someone else's journey, especially when it mirrors our own struggles, it helps us see our challenges from a new perspective. I've had my fair share of experiences where theory didn't seem to help. and it was only by seeing real-world examples of others navigating similar hurdles that I was able to find clarity. I'll never forget a conversation I had with a friend who was stuck in a career rut. She was in a job that drained her energy every day, and although she longed for change, the thought of taking that leap terrified her. She didn't know if she had the skills or the courage to make the transition. She was overwhelmed by the risk and the uncertainty of leaving behind the known for the unknown. But after weeks of soul-searching and self-reflection, she made the bold decision to change careers. She transitioned into a completely different industry, one that aligned with her passions, but it wasn't without its challenges. At first, she struggled to find her footing, dealing with self-doubt and imposter syndrome. But over time, she built new skills, made valuable connections, and ultimately thrived. Her story serves as a powerful reminder that sometimes the hardest leap is the one that leads to the most growth. This isn't an isolated story. In fact, many of the companies I've worked with have faced similar crossroads. I recall one particular instance where a company I was consulting for was struggling to stand out in an overcrowded market. They had excellent products, but their messaging was getting lost in the noise. Their challenge wasn't the quality of their products, it was the way they were positioning themselves. After months of research, feedback, and strategy refinement, they began to pivot. They adjusted their brand messaging, realigned their marketing efforts, and started to engage more closely with their customers. The results were nothing short of remarkable. Within months, their sales improved significantly, and they began to carve out a unique space in the market. These real-life examples demonstrate a profound truth. Success doesn't happen in a straight line. It's messy, uncertain, and often requires bold risks and tough decisions. The key is to learn from those stories, to understand that there will be setbacks along the way, but that each challenge holds the seeds of opportunity. These examples have shown me that the path to success is not about avoiding failure, but about using it as a stepping stone for growth. When we look at these case studies, whether they involve individuals or companies, what stands out is the power of adaptability. Both my friend and the company I worked with were faced with adversity, but instead of letting it defeat them, they adapted. They found ways to turn their challenges into opportunities for growth. And that's something we can all learn from. The road to success isn't always smooth, but by embracing change, being willing to experiment, and adjusting our approach, we can navigate the uncertainties and find our way to success. So, as you embark on your own journey, remember that your challenges don't define you, they shape you. Learn from the stories of others, take the lessons to heart, and apply them to your own life. Just like the individuals and companies in these examples, you have the ability to turn your struggles into triumphs. Findings and analysis. Have you ever reached a point where you look back at a situation and realize that the answer was clear all along? It's like trying to solve a puzzle and the pieces just don't seem to fit until suddenly everything falls into place. I've had several moments like this in my life, moments where I spent so much time trying to find the right solution, only to discover that the solution was right in front of me all along. It's those moments that allow for true reflection, where you can step back and really analyze what worked, what didn't, and most importantly, why. After navigating the ups and downs of several personal and professional challenges, I found a few key patterns that emerged. They weren't just isolated to my experiences, but seemed to apply to many situations I encountered. The first pattern I noticed was the importance of adaptability. Looking back at my career shifts and life changes, I realized that the most successful transitions weren't the ones where everything went according to plan. The times I thrived were when I was able to adapt, when things didn't go as expected, but I was willing to pivot and try something new. There's a certain magic that happens when you allow yourself the freedom to evolve with the situation. Flexibility wasn't just a trait, it became the cornerstone of my success. The second theme that surfaced was resilience. I can't tell you how many times I wanted to give up. There were days when it felt like nothing was working, when it seemed like every step forward was met with 2 steps back. But every time I pushed through those moments, I came out stronger. It wasn't about the perfect plan, It was about staying the course, even when the path wasn't clear. Resilience is more than just bouncing back. It's about staying committed to growth, even when the going gets tough. It's in those moments of struggle where we find our true strength. And then there was the role of learning. Every setback, every challenge, every failure was an opportunity to learn something new. At first, I resisted failure. I saw it as a sign of weakness or incompetence. But over time, I realized that failure wasn't something to fear. It was the universe's way of teaching me lessons that success simply couldn't. Each time something didn't go according to plan, I found new ways to think, new perspectives to consider, and new skills to develop. Learning became a constant companion on my journey, and without it, I wouldn't have made the progress I did. The more I reflected on these findings, the more I understood that success isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about embracing them. It's about having the courage to keep going, even when the answers aren't obvious. It's about adapting, staying resilient, and continually learning from the experiences life throws your way. Looking back, the most profound discoveries didn't come from finding the right answers. They came from asking the right questions. And when you approach life as a series of learning experiences, you start to see every challenge as an opportunity in disguise. Recommendations and future directions. When I think about what comes next, I realize that the journey never truly ends. There's no final destination, no end to the growth, no perfect moment when you've figured it all out. The future is a landscape filled with potential, but also uncertainty. The only way to navigate it is with a sense of curiosity, a willingness to experiment, and the courage to face what's next, no matter how uncertain it might seem. Looking forward. My advice to anyone on this journey is simple: stay flexible. The world changes at a pace we can't always predict, and rigidity will only hold you back. Think about it. How many times have we all held on to a plan or idea simply because we thought it was the right one, even when it wasn't working? The key is to be open to change and willing to pivot when necessary. Life will throw curveballs, and the ability to adjust, rather than resist, will make all the difference. The second recommendation is to keep listening. Listening isn't just about hearing words. It's about understanding, absorbing, and reacting. Over the years, I've learned that some of the best insights come from the people around us. Whether it's feedback from a colleague, advice from a mentor, or even just observing the needs of those around you, listening helps you identify patterns and opportunities you might otherwise miss. It's through listening to others, as well as to your inner voice, that you gain the clarity and direction you need to move forward. And finally, don't wait for the perfect conditions. Perfection is a myth. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that everything has to be aligned perfectly before you can take action. But in reality, the most successful people and organizations didn't wait for ideal circumstances. They created them by taking action, often in the face of uncertainty. Take the first step, no matter how small it might seem. Progress doesn't come from waiting, it comes from doing. The future belongs to those who are willing to experiment, to fail, and to keep moving forward despite the challenges that arise. Looking ahead, it's clear that the future is unpredictable, but that's what makes it exciting. The key to thriving in uncertainty is not having a grand, foolproof plan, but staying curious, being adaptable, and embracing change. The road ahead may be unclear, but with the right mindset, you can navigate it with confidence. There's no blueprint for success, but there is a path, one that's built on curiosity, action, and the willingness to learn from each step along the way. Conclusion: as I reflect on the journey I've shared, one thing becomes abundantly clear. It's not about having all the answers. It's about having the courage to ask the right questions and continue moving forward, even when the answers aren't obvious. I've shared my doubts, my risks, my failures, and my victories with you because I want you to know that you're not alone. The journey from confusion to clarity is rarely straightforward, but it's in the midst of uncertainty that the most profound growth happens. We all face moments where we feel stuck, uncertain, or overwhelmed, but those moments are not the end of the story. They are the beginning of a new chapter. When I think back to my own moments of doubt and uncertainty, I realized that those were the times that shaped me the most. It was in the messy, imperfect moments that I learned the most about myself. The road to clarity is never a straight line. It's full of twists and turns, dead ends and breakthroughs. But every challenge, every setback, and every failure holds valuable lessons that shape who we become. So as you move forward on your own journey, remember this: progress isn't about having a perfect plan. It's about the willingness to keep going, to learn from each experience, and to embrace the unknown. Don't wait for the perfect moment to take action. Trust yourself, stay curious, and know that each step you take, no matter how small, is leading you toward your own version of success. The next chapter is yours to write, and I have no doubt that with the right mindset, you'll make it a story worth telling.